Hello and welcome to Two Girls in a Pod. I am Sharon.
I'm Christy.
So happy to be here and just kind of chatting with people. Here we are at this festive time of the year.
Mm-hmm. Everybody ready?
I know, yeah. It's a struggle for some, you know what I'm saying? For some, it's such a joyous time. For others, it's such a, oh God, I got to do this again. I'm kind of a joyous kind of person.
Mm-hmm. It's time to reevaluate then. If we are feeling that way, I think.
Like I said, it's always interesting because we talk a lot. In the course of talking, we find all these, I think, really interesting conversations that we have on interesting topics.
Mm-hmm.
As I mentioned before, one of the things I do is Noom Vibe. Okay.
Which is a nap.
And I do that every Sunday at 10 o'clock. I get on and do a chat. And this last Sunday did a talk on being authenticity in a changing world. And at first I thought, well, I don't know. I don't know people, is going to resonate with people. Are they going to really understand just from the title what I'm talking about? And I was really surprised. And it's an interactive app. So as I'm doing my talk, people can come on and share their thoughts and ideas and we have conversations. So it's an amazing community. And yeah, people jumped on and they were talking about that. They were understanding that sometimes social norms change, I should say, and also just advanced technology,
Mm-hmm.
can kind of get in the way of that authentic piece.
Mm-hmm.
Don't you agree? Or
yeah, well, one of the biggest topics I think within that we were talking about is the emergence of AI and how it's affecting just everybody. Like you don't realize how much it's being used now, but it's definitely gaining popularity. And I mean, there are a lot of benefits to it, but we've talked about how people using AI who are writing and doing things like that and how much they use AI. And so how much of that is coming from somebody, and how much of it is the creativity on their part, or is it the AI?
I read a little bit of stuff on that. And, some authors are there, like they put sometimes months to years into writing a book, into building characters, all of these things.
Mm-hmm.
And so for some, they understand why you would use it if you're like doing some editing stuff on it. But when you go and you just write a whole book in 2 days and it's not you're not the author of that, but it might be your idea. So you're still engaged, but how do people know the authentic piece of you in
Right.
that, right? Using that as an example.
Yeah.
But it's a lot of things. We have social media now.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, dating apps. I love those.
Mm-hmm.
Not for me. I don't get to do that no more. No. Kidding. But dating apps, when I talk to people who use dating apps, it's like, oh, then I go meet the person and they're not anything like, or they surprise me because there's somebody else. So it's all of these things because even on there, I think people put down what they think somebody wants to hear in order to slide to the left or whatever it is one does with that.
Yeah.
Why?
It reminds me of that commercial that used to be on, and I can't remember what it was for, but the one that she meets on the internet. Everything that she finds out about this person is on the internet, and that person shows up, and they're nothing like that.
And I think there's a thing, of that where I can get on and, we were talking about that earlier because every once in a while I'll go read comments by people.
Mm-hmm.
And just like, I'm thinking, I really hope that's not this person's authentic self because they don't sound happy. They just spewing a lot of hateful and hurtful things.
There's a lot of ways to hide and project things that you probably would not say to someone face to face. So there's that anonymity that I feel like people have with that, and they feel like that they can be aggressive sometimes in their responses and that. And I think that it's sad.
But I mean, if that is their authentic self, that's the sad part.
Yeah. I
Because
think that they're
why would you want to engage with this person who Oh, it can be downright. And anyway, listen, if you've listened to, and if you read comments or listen to comments and stuff, some of them are brutal.
Mhm.
They are brutal.
Yeah. They
And it
can
just,
be.
like I said, it just kind of freaks me out sometimes. I don't understand it. And it is rare that I comment on things. And if I'm going to comment, I try to keep it as positive as I possibly can. But you see a lot of this stuff and it's just weird. You
Mhm.
know what I mean?
Yeah. I think that there are a lot of benefits to the new technology and things like
Absolutely.
that. There's through social media, people can stay connected that are across the miles and still kind of know what's going on with people and that. There are wonderful things about that. And even with the AI, I mean, it has been an asset in so many ways as far as, when you're doing a business or that and you want some suggestions or ideas for things, it can be very helpful.
And when we're talking about that on the authenticity, and these are not political statements in any way, shape, or form, but what I'm hearing people say is, even on the news, I don't know what's truth anymore.
Mhm.
It's like you have to go fact check everything, but most people, it's too much work. So people say, well, they just don't fact check it. And I have people who get very frustrated with that. One was saying, well, they put this on Facebook and I got all riled up. And he goes, and then I thought, well, maybe I better go figure out what this is. And he goes, and then I went, and there was no fact or anything to it. He goes, it was very, he goes, I was pissed off at myself for first off getting worked up over something. And he said, instead of investigating first, he goes, but it's time consuming.
Mhm.
So we don't even have that authenticity in our news anymore, in the people that we look to leadership sometimes. And we've seen that within churches, or it doesn't matter. It's not like it's only in one arena.
You're right. No.
We're seeing people questioning, how authentic is somebody?
Mhm.
Is this the truth of who they are? And so I think it makes people question so much, is this person being truthful or authentic, that people are starting to disengage in a way. And when you start disengaging, though, now you're not able to be your authentic self because you're allowing something else externally to you to drive you to these decision making. Does that make sense?
Mhm. Yeah, I think that, we're so influenced by all of these things, and it often just has that impact that we go off, on an emotional rant about something without being able to really look at it and think about it critically and discern. There's a lot of stuff out there, and I think that a lot of times we get overwhelmed, and so we don't delve deeper and really take the time. And in doing that, I feel like there's a lot of things lost in that. And when we're trying to be our authentic self, we're trying to navigate, what is it that we believe, or what is it that is, what am I going to allow? What are the energy that I'm going to allow in my life to impact the way that I think and all of those things.
And I think that's another thing that's really crucial, is the fact that when we're doing and we're looking at all this external stuff and we're not focused on how we're allowing that to change our authenticity.
Mm-hmm. Exactly.
When we're starting to have these emotional responses that are outside of what we would consider our norm, or what, however you want to put that, you're right. That lack of authenticity in our world starts to reflect back on the individual. And I always tell people, as an individual, you got to pause and sit with yourself and decide, who am I? What is my character outside of whatever else is going on?
Yes.
Whether it's a political, religious view, where you are, socioeconomic, it doesn't matter. None of those things matter.
It's important to take a look at it and not be so reactive in order to maintain our authenticity, I feel like.
Yes. And not to get caught up in those things where you're driven by that emotion and you're on there also actively participating in these hurtful, hateful ways.
Mm-hmm.
And I think it's come to this thing. One of the other things is, if my authentic self is not resonating with somebody, and so I'm trying to force somebody to see things the way that I see them, I become as much of the problem.
Yes. Nothing is resolved in that way when it ends up becoming tit for tat and you're just not getting anywhere. And there are reasons that people have the perspective that they do, whether they're coming from an economical standpoint or whatever it is, and they really adhere to that and they're not willing to bend. I think that you speaking your truth and being able to show kindness and compassion and things like that speaks so much louder than trying to.
And I love that when somebody tells me, well, I'm just speaking my truth. Yeah. And there's something called tact, and you can use it. I don't care what truth you are speaking, you do not ever have to be hurtful or hateful to another human being.
Right.
If you don't like the way they're dressed or something, you don't have to sit there and say, well, wow, you look crappy in that. No, that might be your truth. But another truth may be the outfit you wore last week, it looked better on you. I liked it more. There are so many different ways, but we have gotten to this place where we feel we can just be as hateful to people as we want to be.
Mm-hmm. Like I say, I think
it's not okay.
Especially with the new technology and that's out there, it allows that anonymity and it feels like it gives people a license to do those kind of things. There was an incident not that long ago when we were in traffic and I was waiting to make a turn. Somebody was behind me and they were honking their horn, wanting me to turn, but there was cars coming and I waited a little longer than they thought I should, I guess. Wanted me to gun it, but I was perturbed. And both of us are parking. Mind you, this is a small business we're at, and both of us are parking. So then now we got to get out of the car and face each other. I never turned around, but I was like so aggravated. But those things happen. Now, there are situations where that could have gone even worse, where people, it gets escalated and stuff, and people get out of their car and go at it. What does that solve? Absolutely nothing.
And you know what I think it is? And we had this conversation with one of our coaching clients. Oh, we've had it with our different ones, but that thing of if I stop and kind of shift things and I start paying attention to myself, which in order to know your own authentic self, you've got to pause, put other things at distance sometimes. And what we often hear is, am I being selfish? And you know why that is once again, we continue to stay with these antiquated ideas that your job, whether it's these social norms that we've had throughout the years. So people are sitting there, well, if I buy something for me, but I don't buy it for this person, for my kids first, or for my husband or my wife, or, blah, 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 then I'm just being selfish.
Mm-hmm.
Or if I need time alone and the kids need to be taken care of, or, you have room, whatever it is, whatever that's like, well, why are you doing that? Why are you being selfish?
Mm-hmm.
Why are you walking away?
Yeah.
You start to hear those things, but to find that authenticity even within us, we need to shut down the world around us.
Mm-hmm. A lot of times we're listening to the people outside of us and not even knowing what that authentic piece is. And I think, when we talk about in a changing world, even like it used to be that a person would go to work at a company and stay there for however many years and retire from there and do all of that. But our world is changing and you don't hear a lot of people going and staying at one job, being able to do that for that period of time and get that kind of retirement and stuff. So how do you navigate that?
Well, I think even in that statement too, if somebody's at a company and they make the decision to leave company, military, whatever, oh, what are you doing? Bailing? And sometimes they're leaving for their own self-preservation.
Mm-hmm.
It is their choice.
Yeah.
But oftentimes people will try to force people to stay, and then sometimes people do, and now they're not being their authentic self. So now that's going to show up in that workplace because now you're just cranky and angry. You get further and further away from your authenticity.
Yeah. Sometimes by fulfilling what you have been told throughout your life is the steps to get to what is success. That's climbing the corporate ladder or whatever like that. And maybe you're miserable.
Mm-hmm. Or it can, if you go into the arena of sports, it's like, You breed them to be in sports. And if they're not in sports, and even if they hate sports, they're still going to do it. They're not being their authentic self. I don't care if you live to 120, that's still a short time. Do you know what I mean?
Mhm.
When we look at that's just a moment in the vastness of everything. And no matter how long it is, when we are so busy not being who we authentically are, we don't get to experience, I think, that happiness on that level that every human being should.
Mhm.
We get so caught up in doing and being for everybody. It doesn't matter. Sometimes, it's those things of, oh, well, my family's all been teachers, firemen, policemen, on and on, nurses.
Mhm.
The list goes on, and we just do these things because we're supposed to. And if it's not resonating with you, you are not living your authentic life.
Yeah.
And sometimes we got to walk away from those things. But like I said, sometimes we have to put the world at arm's length in order to be able to sit in that silence and learn, who am I? What resonates with me? Why am I doing the things that I do? What is it bringing to me? And if you notice, everything I said is about me.
Right.
And when I'm working on me and the person next to me is being offended by that, then once again, it's how do I set that boundary and say, this is about me. I'm not doing this to hurt you or blah, blah, blah. We're having to constantly navigate these things.
Yeah.
And now it's even harder to navigate because we're so connected. And the thing is when we learn to be that authentic self, we actually become more connected.
Mm-hmm. We're able to. It gives us the space to do that. We're actually, when we're taking care of ourselves, it's not, like you said, a matter of selfishness, but it allows for the people around us to be themselves.
Well, and I think that's the biggest thing too, is if I can be in my authentic space, then I am going to see people differently as well.
Yeah.
It's not going to be about judging them or having these expectations of them. I will truly be happy for whatever their journey is. And once again, I think we get into that thing where we are so busy in this changing world and this, how everything, information is instantaneous now.
Yeah. And we allow it, like I say, a lot of space in our head. And so I think that when we're so caught up with all of it, then we lose sight of what's important.
And I think the other thing too is we oftentimes think I'm going to gravitate to who I think I am. And let's stay on news. We're not bashing news today. We're just using that as an example.
Mhm.
But even like with news, the person who sits and watches the same news channel only gets fed a certain thing. In order to be more well-rounded, we look at other people's ideas and thoughts in order to find our authenticity. This isn't about politics or religion or blah, blah, blah. It's none of that crap.
Mhm.
It is at the end of the day, it opens the world to me. If I am stuck in one lane and I take that one lane every day, I will never see anything else.
Mhm.
And this becomes that thing of where we get stuck in that rhetoric of spewing. Sometimes we regurgitate stuff without looking. And it was a political year. And how much of the time, all the stuff that people spewed that was hateful, there was nothing to support it.
Mhm.
But yet they stay in that lane. And it's like they don't want to. And I tell my clients who are having these conversations with people, stop. Because all it does is you're getting upset. And one of mine says, I'm just telling them, just broaden your horizons, look at different things, listen to different ideas.
Exactly.
Those are wrong. This is what they're hearing. And so when people sit there, and so as they're working on their authentic self, they're also trying to navigate that.
Mhm.
And we're going to oscillate. We're going to go back and forth. And we're going to fall back into old patterns. And then we're going to go, it's just, okay, I'm in this old pattern. I got to go forward again.
Mhm.
But we are giving up ourselves to be following these patterns of other people. And sometimes, and I think it's sometimes interesting to me when you know somebody on, say, social medias too, but you know them in person.
Yeah.
And then sometimes when you see stuff they post on social media, you're there like, wait a minute, do I know, is this the real person or is this the combination of two? Because I've never seen this
Yeah.
or things like that. So that too makes you start questioning, well, which piece is the authentic? And maybe it's a combination of both.
Oh, yeah.
And it is a combination of both, because I think once again, we oscillate, we go back and forth. We want to feel like we've done this piece of evolution.
Mm-hmm.
We oscillate all the time,
Yeah.
you know.
It's not a matter of mastering something, really. I mean, it's maintenance. It's constant maintenance.
And when you have that authentic piece of whatever that piece is of you, and you can identify it, you work to build that piece.
Mm-hmm.
I have a hard time with people who are mean to other human beings or animals. I have a very hard time with that, because like I said, I think we're on this earth for such a short period of time. We don't need all the bullshit. We really don't. We don't need the hurt. We don't need the hurtful, hateful stuff that is now perpetuated, that has become a norm. And people, I think, are losing themselves to some of these things, because when you don't know who you are authentically, you are going to go and try to find a tribe that is not even yours, but you just want so, and this is why it feels like sometimes that people are so much trying to fit in and to be seen and recognized or whatever that is and acknowledged, that they will go to these places that may not even resonate with their true authenticity.
Mm-hmm. And I think because that is the case, so many times people are following blindly in so many things. And that's why I think it's important to really question why do I feel the way that I do? There are a lot of judgments and things like that about others. And we have to sit with that and say, where does this come from?
When I would work with kids, they would say, when we were talking, I would tell them, you have to decide, who do you want to be?
Mm-hmm.
And I would tell them, the people that you're around, what do you like about them? What is it that if you're around this person or that person, what is it that makes you have that kind of happy or whatever, or feel light or whatever word you want to use? And they would say, oh, I like this person because of this, this, and this. I said, then those become the people that if you're trying to develop that character, that authenticity, and that piece of who you are, you look to those people that resonate with you.
Mm-hmm.
And of course, we see that. We will see people who are followers of this person or this person or this person or this person. But when I then ask them why, sometimes they will give me that, they'll regurgitate what they have read or heard in social media or stuff. Say, okay, well, I have an assignment for you. I want you to go research that person in depth. And then we're going to talk about it.
Yeah.
Because when you're doing that, who these people really are, and they'll come back and say, oh, well, I didn't know, maybe they support this or they support this, or I thought it was this, but it's really this. And so I tell them, understand that when even as a parent, I tell parents or adults, and I'm a big proponent of this, as an adult, I should always be a role model to children. Right. How I behave in public and stuff is really, really, really important to me, because children are watching. That's an authentic piece of me it's something in my core. We had a situation one day, we were in I think Target, and I ran into the stupid, how they have where the clothes hangs and stuff. Well, they had it pulled out. And when I turned, I ran into it hard. Trust me, it left a bruise. It was hard. And I said, oh, I used a profanity a little bit.
Yeah.
And I had just said it, and then I heard little kids, Miss Sharon, run up to me. It was two of my clients, and they're little kids, and they run up and they're talking to me. And so that once again made me aware. I'm there like, ooh, okay, can't do that. I have to remember, if it hurts, just grin and bear. I don't know. Don't say the words.
Right.
No, but even those things, and we have different pieces that are authentically ours that we don't compromise. That's one that I don't. That is such a big thing for me. And you've known me how many years, and
Mm-hmm.
I
Yeah, I know. And that, I mean, throughout all of the time that we've been doing the podcast and that we have talked about gratitude and how it's important to us and how we use that. And I think that the coloring books that we put out, that is about authenticity in a changing world. I mean, because I feel like, we've had the different coloring books that it may be things that you don't think about. Having gratitude for my home or with kids for my toys or those kinds of things. This is a changing world. A lot of times that conversation isn't being had, but it was important to us to do something like that to bring that conversation and show kids, we can be grateful for all of these things.
And sometimes when we teach that gratitude, then you teach them how to be grateful for who they are in this moment.
Yes.
I'm grateful for my body right now. I'm grateful for how smart I am right now. I am, because that is who they are.
Yeah.
And, when we look at ourselves, there's so many things that incorporate that authentic piece of who we are.
Yeah.
And when I was doing the talk, people, were talking about that perception. I was doing other things, but I was never loving myself. And we hear this often. Part of that authenticity is to truly love yourself for where you are in these moments.
Right.
But to not stay there. Life is this amazing thing that is happening. It is happening whether we want it to happen or not. There's always something changing.
Yes.
And we need to choose, are we active participants in this? And how do I have that authenticity? How do I be authentic in all of these different arenas?
How can I learn from each of these things and have that growth?
One of the people who got on said, well, when you go to work and you're this different, you kind of put on a mask. I said, we have what we call facades, different pieces that we show to different people. And he goes, well, what if it's more? I said, well, sometimes we do that as self-preservation. So we have to look at each situation is a little bit different. If somebody is truly an anxious person and they go and they might put on the facade that they're not, so nobody knows they're anxious or things like that, that's a coping mechanism. So when we're talking about this, each one is going to have some different individual variables. But if you're an anxious person, and you're putting on a facade, that takes a lot of energy. So then what happens is if we do too much of that, then by the time we get home, we're tired, we're a little ticked off. And so we can come off in our family system as more aggressive or on edge or a little edgy or whatever.
Yeah.
Well, once again, it's because I'm so busy pretending to be somebody I'm not everywhere else. And if once you learn to have that authenticity and you are who you are, I always tell my clients, I'm sorry in advance, because this is who I am. I am who I am. And we crack up laughing about it. But and the thing is though, in essence, gives them permission to be their true authentic self in that moment, whatever it is, the good, the bad, and the ugly.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm. And in your position, that really is important. I mean, that's what they're there to work on and change.
And I love it because the group the clients I'm working with right now are on such a thing to be, and that's their thing. I want to be who I am. I want to find me in all of this out here. I want to find me and be okay with who I am.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And I think in order to it's a healthy process, but it takes that awareness to know, what is skewing your idea of who you truly are, because you're not really looking at it.
I had one of my clients who always watched the news. Always. It's cranky. So just don't watch the news for a little bit. Or instead of watching it all day long or however many hours, I can't even imagine anybody doing that, but he did. And he admitted it. Only went down to just click it on in the morning, see what's happening, and maybe once in the evening and call it good. And we talk later. He's there like, oh my God, Sharon. He goes, I didn't realize how it would cause me to be like, have angst. He goes, I just go about it. And one of the things we work on extensively, I work on with all my clients, is that piece of what do I control? And I'll tell them, do you control any of that stuff? Do you control what's happening over there? No. Okay, then stop trying. But what happens is when we watch a lot of stuff, it creates that negative space for us. And in order to have that authentic self, sometimes, like I said, we have to turn off the world.
Exactly. Because I think you're losing your authenticity in staying in that agitated state that sometimes follows you into the day because that's the way you started your day, just listening to all of that.
That's not to say that maybe some people's authentic self is just kind of cranky and don't care. I don't know. I think that would be I don't agree with, and I don't believe that, because I think that when we're born, I don't think that people are born this way. What we are is what we have been fed throughout our life. Everything is incorporated into who we are. And then I think, when they say as you get older, you stop caring about things that you used to care about, a lot of stuff changes. You start really getting rid of people or jobs or ideas or whatever. It's because as you get older, you've seen more of the world, and therefore you have a different perspective.
Yes.
But I don't think people are born to be anything. I think when we look at basic things, I think to love is truly a universal thing.
Mm-hmm.
But I think what happens is, once again, we're just that tabula rasa, that blank slate that everything gets shoved into. And what we get, we're kind of guided in our lives by different people in different circumstances.
Mm-hmm. A lot of times we allow some of those experiences to dictate our feeling about things, and we become cynical, and we have to look at that.
And it can be the opposite. If you grow up in a thing where it's a Pollyanna kind of thing, like, oh, everything. No, we're going to have shit. You know what I'm saying?
Things happen.
And so we have to understand that we're going to ebb and flow through this process of finding our authenticity, but we can improve the odds of finding our authenticity when we stop and, once again, distance ourselves from the world, news, social norm, whatever those things are, to sit back and say, and ask those questions. Why is this resonating with me? Is it still resonating with me?
Yeah.
Who am I at my core? What are the things that are truly, truly, if it wasn't taught to me, say it wasn't a relevant person in my life that told me this, if it was somebody over here, would I still feel the same way?
Mm-hmm.
If the answer is no, then what you're doing is it's relevant only because of the connection to the person. It's not truly that relevant internally.
Right.
So taking that time to stop, to breathe, to be mindful, to do things with intention.
Mm-hmm.
Those are the ways we find that authentic peace. To be okay. And if somebody says you're selfish, the answer is no, I just love myself.
Yeah.
I am making myself important.
Yeah. There's nothing wrong with prioritizing ourselves in that way. And I really feel like that we can give from a deeper place when we are that healthy version of ourselves.
When we're not being our authentic self, it's a lot of energy expended, because it's like, people say, I've got to be this person here and this person here and this person here. And I said, when you learn to be your authentic self, you just be authentic everywhere you go, and people might like you. They might not like you. It's okay.
It's okay. You show up as you.
And we're not going to be everybody's cup of tea.
Yeah.
I don't understand it, but
how could that be?
But that's the thing. We're not supposed to be.
Right.
And then when we're authentic, the people that are going to resonate with us, we'll find those people. We will find our true authentic tribe.
Yes, we'll make the connections that we're supposed to make. And we always have to remember people are always at a different place on their journey. So they're learning about themselves too. So
our authentic self is not our political stance.
Mm-mm.
That is a construct.
Right.
Our authentic self is not our church or religion.
Mm-hmm.
It is our spirituality. Church and religion can help enhance that, just as your political belief can. But it is not the authentic peace. It is what we do with those things.
Right.
It is not our job in our profession that is our authentic self. it can be an expression of our authentic self. But too much of the time, people are putting these categories as that's just who I am.
Mhm,
How many
they're
times do we hear that?
letting all those things define them. Yeah.
I am this and I am that. Just as I tell my clients, you are more than your diagnosis. Your diagnosis is not your authentic self. It is just a small piece of your authentic self. But if I'm so focused only on one lane, I never get to have that true sense of who I am.
Yeah.
And a lot of times people do gravitate towards those things because they are lost. They may not understand it. Why do I keep doing this? Why am I part of this group? This group, this group, this group, this group. But then you take yourself out of that group. And if you take yourself out and you are lost or you don't know who you are, the group's not going to make you do that. No affiliation in that is what that is. Those are just additives to who you are.
Right.
But we get lost in that. And a lot of times, once again, we live in this very changing world where information and everything is right at our fingertips.
Yes.
And so everything you can Google, you can do this, you can do that. But now you have to go and fact check a lot of the stuff that you're Googling and whatever. It's too much work. Just don't do no. But those are the important things. I have to be willing to challenge my beliefs
Yes.
in order to know that they are my true belief.
Yeah.
If I cannot challenge it and if I cannot listen to others, then that is not who I am. Because I have to be able to, if somebody says, I believe this, and it's maybe not my belief, I have to be able to sit there and listen and that it doesn't cause I just have an indifference to it. No emotion one way or the other.
Mhm.
I'm just listening to somebody else's idea. But too much of the time, what we are seeing is people are getting escalated when talking about politics and religion and jobs and this and that and government and you name it. People are escalating. And that's because they're trying to prove their point. When you're authentic, you don't have to prove your point.
Right.
You just have to show up.
Exactly.
It's so much less work.
When you know you don't have to defend.
No, exactly. And that's why I tell people it's beautiful when we can learn from other stories and we can listen with intention to learn.
Yeah. With an open mind.
Exactly. So in order to find your authentic self in this ever-changing world, sometimes you have to put the world on hold for a moment. And sometimes relationships too. And it doesn't mean forever, but you have to, even if you carve out those little 20 minutes where you can to sit there and say, why did this bother me? Is it working for me? If it's not, we have to get rid of that stuff that we are holding on to. And that sometimes the electronic world is feeding and keeping it growing in us.
Mm-hmm.
So we have to walk away from it, and that's okay.
And not just through electronics, because everybody is receiving these messages. So you're getting it from people that you know too.
Absolutely. It's everywhere. That's why I say you just have to put the world on hold for
Yeah.
a minute. And it doesn't have to be every day. And it doesn't mean you go end all your relationships and all that. You just see, where do they really fit and resonate with me?
Mm-hmm.
Where does my political stance fit and resonate with me, or my religion, or my job, or the people in my life, or whatever the category is.
Right. It's just important to start questioning yourself where these
Yes.
ideas come from and why they resonate or don't.
And if you're not happy, then go to the place of what is it that makes me happy, external to other people. What do I love to do? Do I love to sit down? Do I love to go take hikes, but nobody else does? So I just stop taking hikes. Do I love doing this, but I don't do it anymore because I don't want to deal with whatever that is. Then you have to go back to that core of who you are and do the things that really work and resonate with you.
Yeah.
Because if it's something that truly brings you joy and happiness, and when you love yourself, you will not bring harm to others. I know it's a lot of heavy stuff, and especially right before the holidays, but this is a good time because even the holidays, we continue to do things that just don't bring good, it's not joyful for us.
Yeah.
So ask yourself those questions.
Mhm.
Change up stuff where you have to change it up. What's the start of a new year? You get to make all these changes. I think you should make them every day, but you know what the heck.
Some food for thought.
Anyway, once again, as always, we are so grateful for each and every one of you who follows us, likes us, whatever it is.
Yes.
See what I mean? Here we have to conform to these things, people.
I know. So hopefully you've heard something that you like today. You can find us on twogirlsinapod.com. You can subscribe there and you'll receive an email whenever we have a new episode. We are on any platform that you listen to your podcasts, and you can find us on Facebook and Instagram as Two Girls in a Pod Life's Journey. You can also find us Adventures of Two Girls in a Pod Life's Journey on YouTube, and you'll find some different things on there, some different clips, some of our dog, that
we
little
love her.
mischievous thing.
Yes.
And then also our coloring books that we mentioned earlier. They're about starting a conversation about gratitude with children, but they're great for adults too. It's a great and zenful, wonderful way to just kind of put all that stuff aside and just
That part of your 20 minutes of closing out the world.
Yeah, exactly. So that's Grateful Beginnings coloring book collection. There is a total of 10 of them, and they are available on Amazon. You can search for them by Grateful Beginnings or our names, Sharon Abeda or Kirsty Banta.
And we appreciate everything. And as always, the more you like, share,
Subscribe,
review,
follow, review, send us messages.
all of that. It's talk about communication and stuff. It helps us out. We appreciate it. And we thank you so much. And for everybody out there, we won't be having a podcast next week, the week of Christmas. We're not going to do one that week, so we won't have the one the following week. But for everybody out there, Merry Christmas, Happy Holidays, Happy New Year, Happy Hanukkah.
Yep.
We have Hanukkah on the 25th this year. Just enjoy your time. Enjoy your time with the people that you love and care about.
Yeah.
Okay. Most importantly, you.
Yes.
Anyway, we'll be back.
Bye.